This YouTube video is going to help you to turn data that looks like this. It's a bunch of raw climate data. You start with something like that, and you are going to end up, there's my dog, you're going to end up with a beautiful plot like that you can use in presentations, in lab reports, whatever. So I'm going to teach this. I got all kinds of stuff going on here. I'm going to teach this as if you've never used Microsoft Excel before, because that's what we're going to learn. So we're going to start very simply, so then we can get to the final plot like this, the exact way you want to present it. So we'll start. Okay, let's get rid of this. All right, so we're going to open up a new file. So File, New. We're going to pick a blank workbook. Okay, let me uncollapse my ribbon here. Okay, so now the first thing we have to do here is make sure that we're using the desktop version of Microsoft Excel, not the online version, because the online version you're not going to be able to install some data analysis tools that we're going to need to actually finish this little workshop. So make sure you stop the video now if you're using online Excel, and you can go to Microsoft Office and you can actually download the desktop version, install that, and then come back to the video. So if you are using a desktop version, there is something that we're going to need called the Data Analysis Tool Pack. And the Data Analysis Tool Pack is already on your computer, but by default, it's not entered into Excel as a choice up at the top here. So what you want to do is you want to go to File, you want to go to Get Add-ins, or depending on the version you have, it might say Options, and then you're going to do Add-ins. Okay, I don't want the store. All right. Of course, we have a little bit of an issue here. Let's click More. Options. Okay, that's what we have to do. And then do Add-ins. Okay, and then down here where it says Microsoft Excel Add-ins, just click Go. All right, and when this window pops up, you want to make sure that Analysis Tool Pack and Analysis Tool Pack VBA are checked. And once they're checked, you hit OK, right? So I'll hit OK, and then they'll be available. And how you know it's available is if you click the little Data tab up here, you will see Data Analysis over here. If you don't see the Data Analysis tools, then it hasn't been installed. Now for Mac users, there is a way to do this. I would stop the video and do a Google search for installing add-ins in Excel on a Mac, and it will show you it's there, but it's in a different spot. And I'm not a Mac person, so I'm not really sure exactly how to do it, but I've done this presentation before with students who were using a Mac, and they were able to get it in there by doing the Google search. Okay, so again, the nice thing about this video is you can stop at any point and do what you need to do to sort of keep up. When I normally do this presentation live, it's about an hour and a half, but the video is going to be much shorter because when I do the presentation live, I stop my presentation, I give students 10 or 15 minutes to play around with the things they just learned, and then we continue. Well, you're going to be able to just stop the video, play around with the things that you just learned, and then continue when you're ready. So the video will be short. The amount of time you spend working on Excel is based on how much you want to play around with it. All right, so we're going to start with just a fundamental basic here, that this box right here, that is A1. So everything in Excel is listed as a cell, and the cell has a column value, which is a letter, and a row value, which is a number. The reason why Excel does this is if I put something in cell A1, anywhere else that I use data from cell A1, it's going to automatically update if I decide to change the value in A1. So you're going to see that down at the bottom here, these little tabs. We might have 2 or 3 tabs here, and some of those other tabs may actually be using data from A1. So if I change A1, it'll automatically populate the new values throughout these other sheets. So that's kind of a nice thing. So what we're going to do down here where it says Sheet 1, I'm going to right-click it, I'm going to say rename, and I'm going to title it Widgets. Widgets Sold. Okay, so a Excel file is considered a workbook, that within the workbook you have worksheets. So another way to think about these is the whole thing is your book, and each of these sheets is going to be a chapter, and within each chapter you're going to have data and images and things like that. So one of the things I used to do before we had the online course management stuff was I would have one Excel file called Gradebook, and then each class would have its own tab, and I would populate it with the students' names and all the different tests and quizzes and papers and everything. And that's how I kept the gradebook. Okay. All right. So what I want you to do is start at A2 and just put the word month in there. And of course, you got to spell it correctly. Okay. And here we're going to do number sold. Okay. Now I'm going to highlight these and work my way down, and I'm going to center them. Don't have to. And then I'm going to bold. Okay, so if you didn't quite follow that, that's okay. You can always stop the video, see what I did, catch up, and then continue on, which is kind of nice. So for month, I'm going to put January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Oops, I almost skipped October. Oops. So I have to go back up here and chop this up. October, November, December. Okay. And then we're going to say widgets are anything that you might sell. So it's just sort of a generic name for selling things. So we're going to put some random numbers in here. Let's say, okay, we do 3 this month, we do 5, 2, 6, 4, 4 again, 7, 3, 8, 10, 13, 16. So we're going to imagine maybe because the holidays are coming, our sales tick up for our widgets or something like that. Now, I'm wearing reading glasses. I'm an older guy, and my eyes aren't so great, so I can highlight this whole thing, and let's make it a larger font. Okay, so you can just do that, and then to make the cells a little bit wider, you just put your cursor here and you drag it over. Okay. All right, so again, hopefully you're stopping the video and catching up here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do save. I'm going to find a place, choose a location. In this case, I'll just do desktop, and I'll do save. Okay, and it was called book 1, but it doesn't really matter. You can call it whatever you want. Okay, so the reason I left this first row blank is because I'm going to highlight A1 and B1. All right, and I'm going to merge and center. All right, so this little thing up here is merge and center. Now, you may have your toolbars may be a little bit different. With Outlook products, your toolbars can either be just text, just little images, or a combination of both. That just depends on your settings. I believe I'm using the default settings here, but anyway, so merge and center. Okay. Oh, I actually clicked on the help by mistake. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to click merge and center. So now I've combined those two. So inside this box, I'm going to type widget sales for 2023. Okay, and now I want to make this bold. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Maybe I'll make it red, something like that. So that's how you can combine these boxes. So I'm going to hit save again. Should probably put auto save on just to, oh no, I don't want to do that. Okay. Okay, so we have this random set of data for our little widgets that we're selling. The goal of this presentation is to get you to use data that you already have and turn it into a pretty picture. Okay, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click the upper corner here, drag down so I'm highlighting everything that's on the screen. Then I'm going to click on Insert, and you'll see Recommended Charts. So I just click Recommended Charts, okay? And what you'll see here is based on the data, Excel is going to try to predict what the best way to present this data is and put that at the top. But you have a variety of different ways you can present this. Now, generally with sales, a line graph is a line chart is probably what you might want to use, but maybe you want to, do it as these little column charts. Maybe you like it to look, filled in. I don't think that the pie chart would be so good for this particular one, but if you ever have anything that's showing percents, pie charts are always excellent. Like, for example, if I were to do a demographic survey of all of my students by age or heritage or number of credits or major or whatever it is, a pie chart would be kind of a nice thing to differentiate between them. So we're going to just go with this line chart here and hit OK. Okay, so now we have this pretty plot here on widget sales, and we're going to do some work on that. So if you're still a little bit confused, again, stop the video and go back and you can catch up. Okay. Okay, now on my screen I see chart styles up here, but basically it's this little paintbrush. To me, this is sort of the fun part of this, because that chart looks a little on the boring side to me, but I can click this paintbrush and look at the different ways I can present that data just by clicking through here. That's kind of cool, right? Here's one, so basically I'm going to go with this one right here. So it's got a little bit more of color to it. It's got the actual data values at the end of each of the plots. And so you can clearly see widget sales were kind of up and down. And then as we rolled into fall, as the holidays, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas were coming, people started buying more of our product. Now you can make this chart bigger. You click on the chart, and then I have my little mouse pointer down at the bottom corner. If I hold the Shift key at the same time and drag it, it will change the X and Y axis of the chart. The dimensions will be locked, so that way I'm not stretching my chart. Okay. We also can create a new tab. I'm going to rename it Widget Sales Plot. And I can highlight this plot here. I can cut and I can paste it here. So now I have just the sales. I don't have any of the data. Now watch what's really cool about this. So see this number 16? Watch what happens if I come over here and let's say December, I turn it into 20 sales. Here comes the magic. Boom, did you see that? Look at that. So this is what I was telling you before, because Excel knows that this data point is always going to be B14. Anytime I change it, it's going to automatically update my plot. Now, in my day, we didn't have Microsoft Excel when I was going through school. And so we had to use line paper basically and use pencil and French curves and things like that. If I had to change that data, it was doing a lot of erasing or redoing the whole diagram. Okay. So again, what I want you to do at this point is I want you to stop the video and play around with chart styles and colors. So right now I have, this is my chart style. I'm going to go to color, and suppose I want to pick a different color scheme. Let's see, maybe, see what works nicely here. And none of these are really super exciting, but let's see, how about that one? And now you're hearing, of course, my dog barking. So I'm going to stop this video for a second. Okay, so the scary thing outside that he thought was a problem is, of course, nothing. Maybe a bag blowing down the road or something. He feels he's just saved us all from this deadly bag. Okay, so we have data like this, we have a plot like this. There's something else you can do. You can click on the little filter, okay? And filter is going to be nice because if we have multiple sets of data on one particular chart, you can choose to remove them. Or you can choose, maybe we want to just look at what are widget sales for the last 3 months. We can just do the last 3 months and then hit apply. And now we just see the last 3 months. It changes the whole chart. But that didn't get rid of everything because if I go back and hit select all and apply, we get our original chart again. Okay. We also can just remove something like March and then hit apply, and it just takes it out. So obviously that wouldn't make sense here because we have to include all the months, but there might be something that in your data that you say, we know that's a bad data point. It's really screwing up my chart. Let's get rid of it, and you can do that. You can also click on names, and you can rename categories and series, so you can play around with that if you want. Okay, so again, we have the paintbrush formats the chart, makes it look pretty. The filter means you can remove things, okay, from the chart. So again, this would be a good time to stop the video and just play around with, again, the paintbrush and the filter until you get it to look the way you want. But again, we're going to do more work with climate data. This is just showing you the basics for a small set of data. Okay, assuming now that you've played around with the chart and you think it's beautiful, it's probably much better looking than mine. You can also click on the plus, and you can change what you want to actually appear. Okay, you could have axis titles. So now I can go in here and I can type in here. I'm going to backspace it out. Widgets, and then down here, month. Boom. So now I actually have an X and Y axis label. Okay, I can go to the plus again. I can put error bars on there if I want, which we don't really need on this particular one because each grid had one value. It didn't have a range of values. Okay, you can do all these different things. Something else that's kind of interesting is you can click on trend line, and you can see if you wanted to plot what's the trend in widget sales. Boom, it's automatically done for you. You don't have to do y equals mx plus b stuff. Okay, so the basics of the chart is that you have a plus sign to decide what elements of the chart that you want to display. You have the paintbrush sign, which for me is the more exciting one. That makes you able to pick your color scheme. And then you have filter, which is going to allow you to deselect things that you don't want to appear. Okay? So often you will have several different plots on one XY axis. Perhaps you want 3 separate images. So you would just deselect the 2 plots you don't want. And then now you can do a little copy paste of the one that you want. So that's kind of a nice thing. So for example, I teach 3 sections of Met 101. Right? If I put the grades for all 3 classes on one chart just to see overall, I might want to then just see one class in particular. I could deselect the other 2 classes and I would just get the single class that I'm looking at. So instead of making 3 different graphs, I have 3 different plots on a single graph, and then I just deselect the ones I don't want to see at that moment. Okay? So again, this would be a good time to pause and just play around with it. But again, don't get too crazy because we're not really here to learn about widget sales. We're going to look at some climate data. All right, so now assuming you've come back from playing around with this, I want you to click on the plus. I want you to rename it climate data. Okay, I want you to make another plus here and rename it climate plots. Okay, So now we're going to put our climate data in here, and we're going to put the plots over here, just because it's going to become a much bigger plot. We have a lot of data. Okay, so now we have to go to the World Wide Web, okay? And you're going to want to Google the word GISTEMP. That is giving you NASA climate data. So I think it's the year 1850 that it begins. So NASA and the National Climatic Data Center in Asheville, North Carolina, will plot monthly mean temperatures for the entire planet, land and ocean, for every month and every year since 1850. The NASA Climate Data Center is in New York City. And in fact, if you've ever watched Seinfeld, you know the restaurant they always go to have their coffee at the booth? Directly above on the second floor are all the climate data computers and modelers for NASA, believe it or not. So anyway, so that's the location. We also have satellite data that's been recording temperatures from satellite since 1979, and we have two places that do that. One's in Huntsville, Alabama, and one's in Sacramento, California. So thermometer data is always the most accurate data. And National Climatic Data Center and NASA use thermometers. They also include satellites, but satellites are estimating temperatures based on something to do with oxygen molecules, vibration, and some other things. So it's an approximate temperature, but they match it to what they read from thermometers, and so we consider the satellite data to be almost perfect when it comes to the actual temperatures. And the reason we like the satellite data is because satellites can look at the entire planet, whereas we don't have thermometers in every little spot on the surface of the Earth. So when you combine that all together, you can get global average temperatures. Now, what climate scientists do is instead of plotting the actual value of temperature for each month on the planet, they record what are called temperature anomaly. So an anomaly means something that's not normal or unusual. Like, for example, if you measured your body temperature and your average is 98.6, well, if you were 100.6, you could say my temperature is 100.6, or you could say I'm 2 degrees above normal. So that would be the anomaly, plus 2. All right, so I'm going to click on this one here. We're going to scroll down until we see about 2/3 of the way down, tables of global and hemispheric monthly means and zonal annual means. So this very first one here, you see a text file and you see what's called a comma-spaced file. We want the comma-spaced file because that's the one that Excel is going to look at almost like any other spreadsheet. So let's click on that. Okay, and then once it's downloaded, we're going to open it. And there's all our data. Okay, and you can see how we have these changes or decimals. These are going to be Celsius, and it's going to be based on what the temperatures were. Oh, it's 1880, not 1850. What the temperatures were, for example, in January 1880 compared to the typical temperatures. I think it's 1970, 80, and 90, something like that. Okay. The thing is, we only want the January through December. Column N is a column that we want because we want the whole year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on B, hold down the Shift button, and go to M. And then we're going to right-click and delete. So we're going to get rid of that. We only want this column right here. I'm then going to do the same thing for these. We don't need these. And we're going to hit delete. So you have to, if I went too fast there, just stop and go back. But basically what you want your file to look like at the end is the title, Land, Ocean, Global Means, the year, and then the actual date is January through December. Okay, so I'm going to change first of all, I'm going to change this. Okay, and I'm going to call it Global Average Temperature. Okay, and for here, I'm going to call this the anomaly. Okay. Then I'm going to start up here at A1, and I'm going to drag down until I get to the year 2022. 2023 isn't done yet, so we don't have a January through December. But here's a spoiler alert. It's now going to be the hottest year ever in this data set. Right? The hottest year ever. And what you can see is 2016 and 2020 are tied for the hottest year ever at plus 1.02 Celsius. 2023 is going to be higher than that. All right? So I'm going to copy this. Then I'm going to go back to the worksheet I'm working on. And I'm going to stick it in here, climate data. I'm just going to hit paste. Boom. So now I can get rid of this comma spaced values. Don't save. No, I don't want that. Okay, so here's my climate data. So make sure that you've got down to 2022. All right, and then I'm going to hit save. So I'm pretty sure you know what we're going to do next. I can almost hear you think, ah, this looks like the widget data. Now we can do some plots. You are correct. So I'm going to highlight all of this. I'm going to do insert, recommended charts. And this first one looks pretty cool, so I'm going to go with that and hit OK. All right. Now, I don't want to work with this on the same set as my data, so I'm going to right-click and do cut, and I'm going to stick it on my climate plots. All right, isn't that exciting? And then I'm going to hold the Shift key. I'm going to grab this, grab this corner, hold the Shift key, and make this a little bigger. Oh, that's a little too big. Shift key, go back a little. Yep, a little bit more. I'm working on a small computer, so my screen there, that's pretty good. In fact, I think I'm going to just drag this down just a little. There we go, just so I can see the borders. Okay, so the first thing you're probably going to be noticing is, wait a second, why are my years right up here slamming through the data? That's because there were years before the middle of the century that temperatures is significantly lower than they are now. So the Excel always puts values under the zero. Well, in this case, we really don't want them to be under the zero. We want them to be down here at the bottom. So what you do is you can click on that, okay? And then I believe you click chart stop. Nope, you do, oh, actually you have to right click on this. There, sorry. Right click on the years, do format axis, okay? And you scroll down here, labels. We want the labels to be label position low. Ta-da! There we go. Now we have them under our plot. So again, I did that kind of quickly, so you can stop the video, slide back a little bit, and see what I just did. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to click on my chart. I'm going to do the plus, and I want axis titles. So for this one, let's backspace it out. T anomaly. And here, I'm going to put year. Okay, so now we have some labels. I'm going to click the paintbrush, and I am going to pick this one. Ooh, look at that. Now, if I'm going to be talking about the fact that the planet is warming, I'm really not going to want to use blue, am I? Right? So what we're going to do is click on here, click format, and I'm going to click color, and we want to use something more colorful. How about, this might be good. Something like that. That looks more like it's a warming kind of value. Okay. All right. Now, it's pretty clear that, well, let's do something here. We can do this plus here, do trend line. All right. We can see the temperatures increasing over time. But a straight line is not the greatest way to present this data because there's a lot of little things going on. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to use something called moving averages to smooth out some of these bumps. And I might say, wait, isn't that cheating? And I'm like, no, because these bumps are caused by what's called internal and natural variability. So we know that the average temperature of the planet's going up because we're burning coal, oil, and gas. That's releasing a tremendous amount of carbon dioxide and methane. Those things allow sunlight to pass through, but trap some of the outgoing heat. So it turns out that every couple of years, we either have an El Nino, like we do now in 2023, which is bumping up temperatures a little bit. That's usually followed a few years later by a La Nina, which ends up causing a little bit of cooling. But they average themselves out. But those are the things that cause these ups and downs, one of the things that cause ups and downs within a given year, because you're giving a little boost to the warming of CO2 or you're taking it away a little bit. We also have a solar cycle that lasts about 11 years, where within 11 years you get a peak in solar intensity, then a dip in solar intensity. So if we weren't adding any CO2 or methane to the atmosphere, you would actually see temperatures ticking up and down every 11 years because we're getting a little extra energy from the sun when the solar cycle is considered to be hot and ticking down a little bit when the solar cycle is considered to be a little low. So we know that the El Nino, La Nina is roughly 5 or 6 years where they kind of cancel out. And we know that the solar cycle cancels out roughly every 11 years. So when climate data is presented, we often present it with what's called a 10-year moving average. That tends to smooth out these single year events that are detracting our eye from the true trend. It's kind of like a moving average is like cutting a piece of wood, and then the moving average would be sanding some of the rough edges that don't really show the true edge, the kind of little things sticking in and out. So what you want to do here is you want to go to data. Okay, let's go back to our climate data, the actual data. Go to data, and you want to click this data analysis. By default, it will pick moving average, so I'm going to say OK. Now, when you work with data on a moving average, okay, it's going to ask you, what's our input range? Meaning, what range of data do we want to include? And I'm going to use this label, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let me hit cancel here. Let me unselect my data here. Okay, now data analysis, moving average, input range. I'm going to highlight, starting with the year, I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom, drag down to 2022. Okay, so that is my input range. I'm going to say, yes, there is a label in the very first row. My moving average interval, I told you, would be 10 years. Okay, now the output, that means, whoops, sorry, I did the wrong thing. Cancel, cancel, cancel. I want the data, not the year. So, data analysis, moving average. See, even the teacher screws up occasionally. All right, so we'll go down here. We want the anomalies because we're going to plot those with a moving average. Okay, labels in the first row. I want 10 years to try to remove the little ups and downs caused by El Nino, La Nina, and the solar cycle. Okay, so I've done that. Okay. Now the output range, I click on that and I have to say, where do I want to put those values? And I'm going to put those values here, right next to it. You can put them anywhere you want, but I think putting next to it's kind of nice. Boom. And then I'm going to ask it to chart the output so I don't have to do it myself. And it will pick a recommended chart. Okay, hit OK. Ta-da! Okay, now I'm going to highlight this chart and I'm going to cut it and I'm going to stick it on my plots page. I'm going to drag the corner. So I'll make this a little bit bigger. Okay. All right, now you probably are going to have to stop the video and go back and look at that a few times to get it right. Okay. So when we look at this, okay, a moving average of 10 years means, right, that this first point here, that is the average of these 10. The next point, right, is the average of these 10. So you basically keep going down one. So for example, this negative 0.26 would be these 10 here, right? So it minimizes any little spike you might have in any one of these individual cells because they're slowly getting averaged out. And so you're getting a much better set of information, okay? Now I'm going to go back to my plot here, and I'm going to use the paintbrush. I'm going to pick a style like this, okay? And now here's a case where I can go back to the filter. I can get rid of the blue, okay? See how much smoother that looks? Then I can right-click my data, format axis, make it low. Now I'd have to go back and change. This should be the years, so I'd have to go back and highlight the years to get it right. Here I can put a plus, and I can do data. I've got it already. So I hit that plus. We got it. So here I'm going to say anomaly, highlight on it, T, anomaly. Here I'd have to go back and do years, but, and then here, undo. Global average temp. Okay. So again, I needed to highlight the year before, but anyway. So now this is going to be a much nicer thing for you to put on your poster or your lab report or whatnot. And I can always go back and I can add in, filter, I can put back in the actual, all right. Come on, filter. Oh, apply, forgot to hit apply. Okay, and then if I want to, I can click just on the blue, right? And I can do color, I can change that to maybe yellow or something like that, right? So you see how we've gotten the overall sense of the data was that you had a little bumpiness here and then pretty much of an increase here. The moving average does a nice job taking that away. So I tend to get rid of the values and use something like this. All right, so there you have it. So basically, as long as you have a set of data, you now know that you can use a recommended chart and you can play around with the plus to add elements. You can play around with a filter to remove things. And then my favorite, the paintbrush, to make it look beautiful for your lab report or your presentation. And that's all we have today. Good job.